You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
It got up to like $68,000. My heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please? America Off the Rails has been declared a conservatives-only safe zone. Only conservatives allowed from this point forward. Any liberal, socialist, butthurt, hippie, tree huggers, please exit the facility immediately. Again, attention please. America Off the Rails is now designated as a conservative safe zone only. All butthurt, tree-hugging, hippie, free-to-be, you and me types exit the facility immediately. Thank you.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to...
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Don't expect us to admit a mistake. We're paying off election.
Keep on doing what you do, Rick. You're my favorite host.
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
All right, folks, happy Monday evening. This is America Off the Rails. I am your host, Rick Robinson. Now, we're going to do things a little bit differently tonight. This will be a live broadcast, and I will be with you for the majority of it. But it's kind of old home week here at K98 Talk. For those of you who are tuning in, who just finished with the Real Serious Nonsense Show. Sorry, in a moment I'll remember what I was trying to say. You may have noticed that Bunny was on that show this evening. Now, one of the things that we're going to do tonight, because of the Indiana primary, I don't know if you guys remember Jason DeWilkins, who used to host the According to Me show here. He's actually put together a bit of a program in regards to the Indiana primary because he actually lives there. So I'm going to be yielding the first part of my show to make sure that you guys get to hear what he has to say about the Indiana primary. Now, what I want to encourage you to do is listen to this, and after you've heard it, if you agree with the things that he says there and you feel as importantly about this as we all do, then I encourage you to go find the link on Spreaker and make sure that you share it as often as possible with anyone that you know who is in Indiana. Now, the show will continue after this is over. This will actually run for the first half of the show. We'll probably do a little bit of an extended show tonight since I'm giving up over 30 minutes of the time because we do still have a few things that I wanted to talk about, as well as a new edition of A Day in the Life of Hillary's server. So without further ado, here is Hoosiers, It's Up to Us, and this was done in the Kensington Place studios by Mr. Jason DeWilkin, the man of 1,000 voices, and also the host of According to Me.
Hello, fellow Hoosiers. Hello, America. 6:30 in the morning. Birds are chirping. You can probably hear them in the background. And I'm talking to you the day before Election Day here in Indiana. And let's be honest. Every 4 years, when it comes to time for the Republican or heck, Democratic nomination for president, by the time it gets to us here in Indiana, the first Tuesday of May, the candidates have pretty much been decided. I mean, sure, we make a difference come November, but come primary season, not so much. And now, the entire country is looking to us here in Indiana. And our state plays a pivotal role in where this election season takes us. It's very unordinary. But that shouldn't surprise you, as this election year has been anything but ordinary, right? I mean, in the 37 years I've been alive, and the 20 plus years, or pretty close, I've been allowed to vote, there is no more important election that I've ever been a part of. I think whoever the next president is going to be challenged with things that many of his or her predecessors have never had to go through. Face a reality that is quite honestly very scary. I mean, as a nation, our debt is increasing at record levels. Our financial system has been manipulated and falsely propped up for years. It's a house of cards. Our once allies are barely our allies anymore. Our once enemies are now our friends. I mean, I think whoever inherits these issues that have been perpetuated by both political sides for too long has a real mess on their hands. And I wanted to take a minute today to discuss with you the choices that we are faced with, not only here in Indiana, but for the rest of the states during the primary season. And let's first look at the Democratic side. We have a wide-eyed, government-expanding socialist. And then we have Bernie Sanders. No, but seriously, Hillary Clinton, who initially started out saying, look, it's just going to be like Obama. I mean, Obama did some really good stuff. I'm going to do the same. Has now seen the message of Bernie Sanders and how it is connecting with a lot of people. And now she's turned into the sales manager of Crazy Clinton's Car-O-Rama, where we'll do anything to make the deal. Who wants free stuff? Who wants free stuff? Free college, free this, free that. She's become to the left of Bernie just to try to win the nomination. But it shouldn't surprise you. I mean, let's be honest. She's a Clinton. They're not necessarily very trustworthy, and they'll say whatever they have to do to get elected. Not unlike most politicians, but she's a Clinton. And unlike Bernie Sanders, unlike Bill Clinton, heck, unlike Barack Obama, she's completely unlikable, untrustworthy, unlikable, and I think completely unelectable. And then you have Bernie Sanders, and bless his heart, he comes out and says, I'm a democratic socialist. Oh, I see. So you're a socialist, but it's democratic, so I guess we just vote for socialism. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. It's a kinder, gentler side of socialism. And what makes me laugh is that 8 years ago, when many people knew what Barack Obama was all about as a president and where he stood ideologically in his role of what government should be, When you said he was a socialist, that was crazy talk. That was insane. What are you talking about? Of course, everybody thinks he's a socialist. And now here we have at least one presidential candidate who come out and say it, another one who's running as one, that are both socialists who believe in the size of government to be even bigger than it is now. To have this cradle-to-grave philosophy in which we're going to take care of people, and the only problem with that is the math has never worked across the world in almost every instance. Eventually, you simply run out of people's money. And we know in Indiana, that's not going to work. We know across the country that government is not the solution to the problem, but government is the problem. Shout out to Ronald Reagan for that one. Thanks. Now let's look on the Republican side. We have John Kasich. And moving on. No, but seriously. This guy's won one state. One. His own. He has less delegates than Marco Rubio, who's been out of the state for quite some time. And even with, 10 states left after Indiana still to vote, or pretty close, he still may fall short of Marco Rubio's delegate count. I mean, come on. He is wasting everyone's time. And a vote for Kasich at this point is a vote for Hillary Clinton or a vote for Donald Trump. And that brings us to Donald Trump. And I want to spend some time here. Listen, I understand the draw. If you're a Republican, moderate, heck, even a Democrat, you feel like you've been lied to for years and years by Washington and politicians. You're sick of Washington, and in fact, according to a recent study, head lice, yes, head lice, are seen as more favorable to the American people than Congress. I get it. I do. You're also tired of making sure you obey the PC police. Don't say this, it may offend somebody. And you wouldn't want to be violating someone's safe space, so shh, be quiet. Mind your P's and Q's. So here comes on the surface, at least, someone who's successful, brash, outspoken, who isn't a politician, and promises you that you're going to win with him in charge, and you're sure as hell sick of losing. Again, I get it. But there's an old saying that holds true, and I know Hoosiers and the rest of America know what this means. Actions speak louder than words. Anybody can say what they're going to do, but what actions will you take based on what you say? And more importantly, what actions have you taken in the past to show that words you say are more than just, words? And this is the problem with Donald Trump. He says he's not a politician. And because of this, will not be corrupt like a politician who are all about lobbies and special interests. And there's validity to his point. But again, what are his actions involving this? Well, he has 40 years of a record of showing him giving money to politicians, mainly on the Democratic side, including 7 times to Hillary Clinton. Yes, 7. But he's also given money in the last couple of years to John Boehner and Mitch McConnell on the Republican side. And when questioned on this, he says, look, I give money to people, okay? That's how I get things done. I make deals. You got to pay politicians. You got to get things done. It's the way I do business, okay? So we're supposed to believe a man who has used and abused the system to his own advantage to be a man who wouldn't do that as president, though. It's like a local mob boss who uses money to buy off the local police department and then years later runs for police chief. I mean, in your town, if that were going on, wouldn't you be sitting here going, whoa, what's going on here? Who else has common sense? Who here else is paying attention? This guy was a mob boss. He used the system to get ahead, and now we're going to trust him to be the police chief? Huh? What's going on? And while politicians are not trustworthy in almost every instance, don't you still want someone who knows what they're doing? And they don't just say it, but they have actions to back up their words. Listen, if you're having bypass surgery, you don't want a doctor who spends all his time in the operating room telling you how he's the best surgeon and every other surgeon here are idiots. They don't know what they're doing, okay? And truth be told, I've never really done surgery before. But look, I'm a very successful lawyer. I'm really smart. We'll figure it out. We're going to do it. Trust me. Believe me. You'd be on the operating table going, is there anyone else I can talk to? And another reason people seem to like Donald Trump is he's a businessman. We want to run our country like a business. We need to run our country that way. And look, I see a lot of logic to that. If a business is flat out broke, you can't just keep doing business as usual like the federal government has done for decades. You actually have to have a budget, a profit and loss statement, and make the appropriate decisions that may be hard, but they're the best for business. You got to stay profitable, right? You got to prosper. Maybe you want to be in a position to expand and even hire more people. You want to have the best company you can. And there's no denying that Donald Trump has been successful. But it should also be fair to point out his failures. He opened up a line of steaks, Trump steaks. It's out of business. He opened up a line of vodka, Trump vodka. It's out of business. He opened up a line of water, Trump water. It's out of business. Plus, Trump Magazine failed and it's out of print. Not to mention Trump University, in which right now he's getting sued because he charged students an exorbitant amount of money to earn a degree that never came to fruition. Plus, his companies have declared bankruptcy 4 times. So his track record is not flawless by any means. And look, if the cost of entry is a smart, successful businessman needs to run the country, why not Michael Bloomberg? Why not Warren Buffett? Or Bill Gates, for that matter. I mean, what about the CEO of Costco? I mean, everyone loves Costco, right? I mean, it's a great store, great organization, and plus, I'm sure as president, he could hook us up with some product samples or something. And again, who doesn't like free stuff? Right, Bernie? Let's look at the main hot button issues Trump says he's going to address, which is immigration, trade, and jobs. And look, it's not as if we don't have laws for those who come into our country illegally. Just they're not being enforced. They were barely being enforced under George W. Bush. They're simply being ignored now under Barack Obama. So Trump's going to build a wall, right? A wall, by the way, that many other politicians that are still and currently running for office, on the Republican side, are going to do as well. They just don't talk about it every 5 seconds like Donald Trump does in every speech. And hey, there's validity. You should build a wall. I'm not disagreeing with that. But Trump's plan is to build a wall, deport everyone out of the country who's here illegally. Okay. Kind of brash, but okay. Bold. Get it. Only to let them right back in the country again. Well, that makes no sense. And it would be a massive expense, but that's okay. We are going to pay for it. We're going to have Mexico pay for it out of their own pocket to keep their own people out of our country. It's a laughable pipe dream. And Trump's proposal, if Mexico doesn't pay for it, he'll shut down all the money transfers from the United States to Mexico. Think about that. No money leaves the United States, goes to Mexico until they pay for the wall. Not only is that an absolute unprecedented abuse of power from the president, but it's the furthest thing anyone who calls themselves a conservative would do. And when it comes to trade, Trump's plan is to negotiate better deals, right? And if not, he's going to add a tariff or tax, simply put, I guess, on all items imported from other countries if we don't get a good deal. He's talked about a rate of 45%. Now just think of what a rate of 45% on every item, say that China ships to the United States, is going to do on the costs for you. Do you think China is just going to say, hey, America, the prices of all the stuff we manufacture here in China and ship over here, we're going to keep it the same. Don't worry about it. No, it's all the same. Look, we want to do business in America so bad. We really need you guys. Yeah, the 45% that Donald Trump's charging us, we're going to eat that cost. Don't worry. No. Seriously, we really want to do business in America so bad, we're going to eat it because we need you? Yeah. Doesn't happen. That's crazy to think that that's not going to impact you at all, which is why his strategy is simply irrational. And if implemented, would be unsustainable for the American people. I mean, as it is, it's hard to live paycheck to paycheck like many Americans do. What do you do when the costs of a lot of the goods that are made in China, let's say, which, let's be honest, are a ton, are at a rate of a 45% tariff on everything you buy? How do you make ends meet with that? And look, speaking of jobs and making ends meet, jobs are an important topic to every American, every Hoosier, especially. And jobs are leaving the United States. mainly because the United States has become the country with the highest business tax rate in the world. 35%. It costs you more to do business in the United States than any other country. Now, in fairness, Trump has a plan to reduce the business taxes from 35% to 15%. And that will have a tremendous impact on us. I get it. Good for you, Donald. However, it's not just taxes that cause a company to want to leave the United States or even Indiana. Or it's not just taxes that still make it almost impossible to be profitable and do business here in America and not be enticed to go elsewhere. Because you have the EPA, you have federal regulations, you have Obamacare. These are all things I mentioned that Trump's never talked about as a way to bring back jobs. But what he's going to do is he's going to penalize companies who are moving out of the country or talking about moving out of the country, because what he's going to do is he's going to get on the phone, right? And he's going to say, look, you can't go. You can't leave, okay? And if you do, everything you send to the United States, we're going to tax just like we do items from China. That's the way to keep them here, Donald. I see. Makes sense. It's just not something a conservative does. And Donald brands himself as a conservative Republican, but he stands behind Planned Parenthood, raising taxes, gun bans, loosening the libel laws so that if you're not nice to him, he can sue you. I mean, whether you're conservative or not, does that sound like the beliefs of a conservative? And look, as a father, as a husband, as a man, I don't expect a politician to be a shining example of decency and morality, or to be a role model. However, don't you want a president who seems to be a decent human being? I mean, look, I don't have to have a beer with them, but how you treat people is a true showing of one's character. And not just the people you're supposed to be nice to, or have to be nice to for now. Look, anybody can kiss up every once in a while if they need to, but how does one treat the lady at the gas station? Or the guy who takes your order going through the drive-thru on a lunch break? When no one's looking, how do you treat people? And look, as a father of 4 children, I'd love my children to be successful like Donald Trump. But if that comes at the expense of being like the kind of person Donald Trump is, no thank you. I mean, Donald Trump says he's a Christian, but when asked if he's ever had to ask for forgiveness, not something I've ever had to really do because I don't do things wrong. I live my life really good. I know of atheists who have asked for forgiveness. And this is a man of virtue? I mean, if you're being honest with yourself, Donald Trump is not a person you should emulate yourself after, nor should you ever want your kids to be that way. And while 30% of Americans truly support Donald Trump, that leaves 70% who don't. And let's be honest, most politicians aren't likable. But Trump really raises that bar. He's looked at unfavorably by 67% of Americans, a number that is higher than any president or candidate for president ever. Even in the everyone hates George W. Bush phase in America, he wasn't looked at 67% unfavorably. And this guy isn't even president yet. 77% of Hispanics look at him unfavorably, the highest number ever among any candidate. But can you blame Hispanics? He calls them rapists and drug dealers. 7 out of 10 women, 70% of women, look at him unfavorably. But can you blame women? He calls them bimbos and fat pigs. It'd make sense that Democrats look at him unfavorably, but more than half of independents and over 30% of Republicans look at him unfavorably. This spells an absolute disaster in the general election. So for those of you who are saying, yeah, but we got to beat Hillary and he can do it. Not with those numbers. And think about it. Can you imagine from July to November the skeletons that will come out of the closet that the media just so happened to stumble upon? Well, we didn't know that about Donald until now. That's weird. Hey, check this out, America. It will be a bloodbath. And will certainly give the election to Hillary Clinton in a landslide. Something the majority of Americans, and yes, even Bernie Sanders supporters, don't want.
But it's easy for me to sit here and tell you who to be against. That's simple. And let's face it, many times I, and I'm sure you, have voted for someone as a block, right? I don't like this guy, but if I vote for this guy, it'll make sure that that guy's not elected, and that guy's even worse. You've done that too? Yeah. Welcome to my world. Kind of sucks. How does it make you feel to play political tic-tac-toe? Because that's what we're doing. But instead, I feel we're more energized, we're more engaged, we're more attentive when we are for something, not against. And this time, we truly have somebody to be for and not against. Someone who went to Washington and stood on his principles, has not wavered from them, despite his own party loathing him for it in the process. A person who means what he says what he means, but then here's a novel idea, backs it up with action. Someone who believes that America and Americans are at their best when government is small, limited, and for the most part, out of our way. And that person is Ted Cruz. And the point of this recording is not to sound like a political campaign and read you bullet points and make it sound like a commercial that you'd hear on radio or on TV. I'm not going to insult your intelligence. I'm not going to waste my time or yours. Instead, I want to talk to you as a father, as a husband, as an American. I want to talk to you like a common sense, average American dude, because that's who I am, and I have a good amount of belief in the fact that you're exactly that same person as well. And for us, in that instance, for me, as that person, to me, our next president is Ted Cruz, or needs to be. And let me tell you why. When Ted Cruz talks about his initiatives as president, he summarizes it with 3 topics, 3 words. That is freedom, security, and jobs. And I want to discuss jobs with you. Because like I said before earlier, we are a nation that has the largest taxes in the world. It's more expensive to do business here in America than any other country in the world. This we know. And while a lot of large corporations, thanks to the government, have the ability of creating loopholes for themselves or loopholes that already exist so that they can avoid a large portion of those taxes, your small businesses don't have that same luxury. And the American workforce is made up of people that are employed by small businesses at a percentage of 70%. Yeah, 7 out of 10 people here in America who have a job work for a small business. And what are these taxes doing to them? But not just taxes. But what are regulations doing to small businesses? What are EPA standards doing to small businesses and to farmers? What is Obamacare doing to small businesses? It's crushing them. Absolutely crushing them. And let's look at what Ted Cruz has in store that I think will have a tremendous impact on our businesses here in our community and across the country. And that is, first of all, having the REINS Act passed. And what that is that he makes Congress vote on any major cost increase that a regulation would have on a business needs to be voted on by Congress and passed. Not just put in there by some agency, but the people that we actually elect need to vote on this so that we can hold them accountable in the event they vote for something that we don't approve of or vote for something that we feel is killing businesses in our country. Right now, we have departments of the government that are nameless, faceless. You can't contact them. You can't vote for them. You can't get rid of them. But they're there, and they are crushing business here in America. But what about the EPA? Who is picking and choosing certain industries, certain energy sectors, and having costs necessarily skyrocket. Thanks, Obama. He came out and said it. The coal industry, a lot of the ways that we heat our homes and have things working in our households, those costs are going up due to energy costs going up. And why are those energy costs going up? It's not because things are becoming more expensive. It's because of the regulations that they're being held accountable for that are making the cost of business become astronomical. And when you look at the Waters of the U.S. rule, and more importantly, the Clean Power Plan that Ted Cruz has in store, do you know the impact that's going to have on businesses and farmers to not have all of the red tape to make sure they comply with what the big bad government says this week? Who knows what it'll be next week, but this week we know what it is. Do you imagine the impact that's going to have on businesses? No other candidate talks about that or wants to address that. Ted Cruz does. On top of that, what about Obamacare? Because there's nothing that has killed or crushed corporations or jobs more in America than Obamacare. And what does this have to do with your job? Well, a lot, actually. Most Americans get their insurance through their employer. And what has the cost of health care been since the passing of Obamacare? Have you seen it go up or down? Yeah, I kind of seen it gone up, haven't you? How many people have been negatively impacted by Obamacare from their employer? And I know of a preschool teacher that had her prep time before and after class eliminated so that they would be under the threshold of the amount of hours worked, so they wouldn't get dinged for not providing insurance for one of their employees, and they were moved from full-time to part-time, making them not only not qualify for medical benefits, but also cutting their hours back. Now, needless to say, this person isn't a teacher anymore. That's a true story. And I know of many people who used to be full-time, but have had their hours cut. And it's not due to a lack of business. It's due to Obamacare. The additional requirements employers are forced to cover or be fined. Not to mention, again, the skyrocketing cost of healthcare year after year, despite being told this amazing plan was going to reduce healthcare costs. It hasn't. And while it's impacting employees, it is crushing businesses. It's a job killer. And President Ted Cruz is going to repeal every single word of Obamacare. Well, talk is cheap, right, Jason? Anybody could say that. Well, Ted Cruz is the only person who would not bend to both Republicans and Democrats on this issue. You remember the whole government shutdown thing? Yeah, Ted Cruz was blamed for that. But it was only because he stood his ground when everyone else practically wavered on it, despite telling their constituents they would do otherwise. Ted Cruz plans on making healthcare plans private and affordable. Think of insurance, think of health insurance like car insurance. Hopefully just not with the creepy Flo chick from the Progressive commercials. Yeah, and you may have been bombarded with health insurance commercials, but how is it now? Well, not only is government heavily involved in your health care, but even if you have the ability of having private insurance anymore, what do you have, one, maybe two options per state? How about having dozens of options, just like you can for car insurance, that are competing for your business, competing for your dollar? It is free market capitalism, and having open markets and free markets reduce costs. With that
That's
kind
not
of
how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Now, what's that going to do to your health insurance, to my health insurance? It's going to make a tremendous impact to me and my family, and I'm sure yours. And speaking of my family, and for yours for that matter, while we understand that a portion of what we make and earn needs to go to help pay for needs of the public, I don't know about you, but I trust you a lot more with your money and what to do with it than the government, don't you? Well, so does Ted Cruz. I mean, you know that feeling. I get it. When you work a full 2 weeks and, you know, you've earned X, but what you bring home is Y after taxes, right? Well, how would it feel to bring home X from now on? Ted Cruz is eliminating the payroll tax, putting that money back in your pocket. And speaking of taxes, some people pay a tax rate of 40% here in America. Some don't pay any. Heck, some get paid and get paid more back than they ever put in due to deductions, etc. There's no more 7 tax brackets anymore. Ted Cruz is going to institute a simple, across-the-board, flat tax of 10%. If you make $1 million, you get taxed $100,000. If you make $100,000, you get taxed $10,000. And before you say, "Oh, well, tax cuts only help the rich," the first $36,000 you earn is tax-free. So those who make lower incomes don't have the tax burden. I mean, simply put, do you know what you could do without a good 25% of your check missing every 2 weeks? Imagine what that does to our economy if you spend it or save it, which, by the way, Ted Cruz is the only candidate that's allowing you to save up to $25,000 a year tax-free in a universal savings account. And many people go, "Yeah, but when you cut taxes, I mean, we're in debt as it is, Jason. How are you going to pay things off? How are you going to pay off our debt?" Well, time has shown, ask Russia. Yeah, those guys who've instituted a flat tax, that it increases revenues exponentially because now you have more people with more money in their pockets, which has helped growing their local economies. People are spending more. Plus, there's no more write-offs for car mileage or oil changes or putting energy-efficient light bulbs in your house. No more write-offs, no more loopholes for everyone across the board. That's jobs. Now let's talk security. I also know, as a father, how scared I am when I take a step back and look at the world we're living in. We have radical Islamic terrorism. Yeah, I said it. Threatening to kill Americans and our allies all around the world. I mean, do we even know who our allies are anymore? We've spent the last 8 years doing everything we can to distance ourselves away from allies like Britain and Israel, and done everything we can to be chummy with Iran, whose leaders are developing nuclear weapons to destroy us and our allies, and whose people chant death to America. I am tired of emboldening their strategy and ideology by appeasement. I think it's pretty clear who our friends and enemies are, and I think it's about damn time we let the world know where we stand, because for so long, it was very clear where we stood as a nation. Ted Cruz will stand with Israel unapologetically and will terminate the disastrous Iran deal. And look, I don't want our troops being sent off to fight who knows where in who knows what country for God knows what. But we've seen that not calling out evil by its name and appeasement has gotten us so far. It has given us enemies who feel we don't say what we mean what we say. It has also given us a reputation of all talk and no action. And that stops under Ted Cruz. And lastly, freedom. I know our country, which is less than 300 years old, is exceptional. Countries and empires that have been around for thousands of years have never seen the amazing accomplishments, results, and ingenuity that has come from the United States. And the reason for this is very simple to figure out. Our founders set out to create a government that was unlike any other in the history of the world. It was an experiment. Can man rule himself? Should man be free? Could man be free? Because besides God, what gives Americans the freedom that we enjoy and have is a document that has withstood the test of time. Because it lays out what it is government cannot do, not what the government can. This amazing document birthed the greatest country on earth, and a country I'm so proud to be a part of, and I'm glad and proud to raise my children in. But year after year, president after president, more and more of the freedom allotted in the Constitution's taken away. Who here feels that freedom of speech is uninhibited anymore? You still feel the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms isn't being infringed on? I don't. How about the Fourth Amendment and your right against unwanted searches and seizures? You feel safe with your stuff? You feel there's a right to privacy anymore? You feel that's being observed by our government? More and more of the Constitution is being ignored. And this goes against everything that made us great in the first place. And Ted Cruz has spent his entire career defending the Constitution. And while all politicians who are elected are sworn to uphold it, he is the only one with actions, not words, who has done it. He believes in the balance of power in our government, and more importantly, believes wholeheartedly in the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States and the Constitution are reserved to the states, to the people. Government is at its best when it is limited and it is local, because it is when the people are engaged and when they decide the course of action they want their city, their state, their country to take. Ted Cruz realizes this, while every other candidate pays it no mind. And it's for reasons like this that I'm supporting Ted Cruz. I just feel our country is at an absolute pivotal point. Bernie Sanders just grows our out-of-control government record and spending levels to even higher levels. Hillary Clinton gives us another 4 to 8 years of Obama policies at best, but is also completely untrustworthy and simply unlikable. And Donald Trump, while branding himself as an outsider of the system, if the old saying, putting your money where your mouth is, well, his money and his mouth have been in Washington insiders' pockets and politicians for 40 years to get things he wants and that benefit him. Plus, the action items he says he will implement to quote-unquote make America great again are either nonsensical or damaging in ways that are bad, if not worse, than what Clinton and Sanders would do. So to me, the choice for Indiana and the choice for America is Ted Cruz. We've seen it firsthand in Indiana, what common sense conservative values in government lead to. A surplus, in which our state is in the black, not in the red. A state that, while losing some jobs overseas, is gaining jobs from states around the country at a faster rate, almost faster than some states called Texas. And if you need further proof of what happens when you go the opposite way, look at our neighboring state to the west, Illinois, or to the north of us, to Michigan. Here is a state, if not at the state level, at least major cities that are predominantly run by liberal Democrats. High taxes, out-of-control spending, union control of the private sector, and unsustainable pensions. How's that working for them? How many businesses are leaving Illinois and Michigan and moving to Indiana for this reason alone? Oh, and while we're talking small government and freedom and the Constitution, how are the gun laws in Chicago and Detroit helping keep streets safe? Over 1,000 people have been shot in Chicago this year alone. We're 4 months in. It's a small, limited government at the national and state level and an adherence to the Constitution that leads us back to greatness as a nation. And the only person who stands for these values and principles and has an actual track record showing it is Ted Cruz. And that is why he has my vote, and I hope he has yours. Now, the purpose of this recording and this podcast was for me to share with you my thoughts and my opinions on the election. Hopefully I was able to convey that in a way that makes sense and in a way that impacts you and at least gets you to think. If you feel that this needs to be shared, I would appreciate you doing so on Facebook, on Twitter, with all of your friends, whether they're voting in Indiana tomorrow, whether they're voting in future elections or future state primaries that are coming up. Heck, whether they voted already or whether they're going to vote in the general, because all of this matters. And this has been the 2016 election. What's at stake and what direction we need to take as a country by supporting Ted Cruz, according to me.
All right, folks. Well, I hope you don't mind me preempting the majority of my program.
Well, by episode 20, it should be Christmas. I'll get you an abacus. How about that?
Okay, there we go. He kept on talking after I thought he was done. All right, so I hope you guys don't mind me preempting the majority of my show to bring you what I thought was a very important point and a very necessary point. Actually, quite a few points in regards to what is at stake with Indiana. Now, I do have a couple things that I want to add to that, because one of the things that I think I don't know, there's not an easy way to say this. I spend a good portion of my time on social media trying to build the brands and interact with the people that listen to the show, my show, other shows, talk about the station, talk about politics. One of the things that I've noticed that is the scariest thing for me is we have now seen this rise of this movement, and I see the same thing over and over again, where they start talking about the time is now, the choice is no longer left or right, it's nationalism versus globalism. And they're using all of these really pretty sounding semi-patriotic words, but in very, very scary ways. And they don't even seem to understand what it is that they're saying. And this is becoming the clear difference for me. Because when you listen to the things that Ted Cruz is saying, he's talking about the Constitution and ways to actually help the country. Things like the flat tax, which would help immensely for families and businesses across the board. Other ways to do exactly the same things that Trump talks about nonstop over and over again, like helping with immigration and possibly even finding a way to build the wall. Probably not one that Mexico pays for, mind you, but ways to improve our immigration system. And he does those things, and he lays them all out. And what is driving me completely insane about this election cycle is I feel like I woke up one morning in Bizarro World, because I'm watching someone who is a proven liar, who has lied to people over and over and over again, who is probably one of the most immoral people that's ever run for political office, short of Bill Clinton maybe, who basically has found ways to flip it all. He comes across as the guy who was wearing white robes with a halo, and he's got folks like John Boehner calling Ted Cruz Satan himself, Satan incarnate in the flesh. What world have we woken up in where someone who is as conservative as Ted Cruz honestly is now the establishment whipping boy? Look, if any one of the three people left in the race is completely sold out on the establishment, that would be Kasich. I think Trump was their second choice. Probably actually their first choice, because I think he was originally supposed to take the role that Kasich has taken when they realized that Trump, for some reason, wasn't ever going to lose momentum in this election cycle. And that's another thing that scares me. I literally really do think everybody joked around in the beginning of this how he could shoot somebody and not lose anything in the polls. I think at this point he could probably shoot somebody and gain in the polls. I think the people are really that crazy. I've seen it play out over and over and over again on social media. And it's why this election cycle is as important as it is. Let me remind you of something. For those of you who are students of history, Rome didn't see their downfall until it was too late. The original Greek democracy didn't see their downfall until it was too late. We are hurtling headlong into what will probably be the final days of this country if we do not find a way to change course. And I do not make that statement lightly. I make that statement with the full understanding that it makes me sound somewhat crazy. But in my heart of heart and in my gut, I believe everything that I just said to you. We have reached the point where we have a determining factor ahead of us, and Indiana is going to be that deciding factor, whether we want it to be that or not. Because there are really only 2 elections left in the primary cycle that are going to get us to the point where either Trump gets the nomination or he doesn't. If he doesn't get the nomination, that gives us a fighting chance at the convention to make sure that we get someone elected who is actually a conservative. And it's one of the same points that I have been making over and over and over again, because everyone wants to complain about these rules and how it's not fair and how the system's antiquated. Let me tell you something. The moment that we as a nation start looking back on our founding fathers and thinking that we are smarter than they were, then we have a huge problem. Because if anything, we have gotten less intelligent over the last 200 years, not more intelligent, at least not in the ways that it matters. And it's evident over and over again in our decision-making processes and the things that we do on a daily basis that would make our founding fathers look at us like we were insane. And look, maybe it is because I'm an old guy, but I look at the documents like the Constitution and the other things that led up to the writing of the Constitution and all the things that have gone into the creation of this country, and I look at them and I look at those things and they are amazing to me. That there was this group of people with such forethought that they could put together something that even they thought would only last 50 years. And now here we are over 200 years later and we're still here. Now, granted, in some ways we have left a lot of things that they have taught us in the dust. And that's why a lot of us that are conservatives are saying, hey, we're still over here. Hello, this is not what the Founding Fathers wanted. This is not what the Constitution says. Can we please get back to this little document that basically outlines what the government can't do, not what the people can do? People seem to forget that's what that document was for. It wasn't about restricting us. It was about restricting the government. So we have a clear choice, and no one wants to see it that way. We can either embrace Donald Trump, who is the guy who has been, without a doubt, funding everybody that wants establishment and wants globalism and all of the other catchy phrase words that everybody's been using on this election cycle, and has been doing so from the moment he got access to money, or we can support Ted Cruz. The guy who was not my first choice, not my second choice, and honestly, if you want to know the truth about it, wasn't even my third choice. But of the 3 choices remaining, he is the most conservative one left on the map. And the fact that he is continually beaten up by everybody at this point, helps me understand that he is the right choice. Because the establishment doesn't like him, the liberals don't like him, and neither does the Trump camp. So as far as I'm concerned, that makes him the choice for me. Because if everybody's ticked off about it, then he's probably the one that we need to get things done. And the simple fact of the matter is, like the guy, lump the guy, whatever you want to say about the guy, he's the only one in recent history that I can remember off the top of my head that actually said, if you send me to Washington, I will try to do these things. And he's actually tried to do those things. So I sincerely hope that he's the one that we can actually give a shot at the general election for, because out of the three that's left, he's the only one that has a shot at Hillary. The mainstream media is going to eat Trump alive. There are so many things they haven't even started talking about yet that you know they know. The guy has been way too enmeshed in all of this mess since the 80s. And you know as well as I do, they have secrets. They're doing the same thing that they did with McCain. And I can't fault them at this point, because everybody knows that the majority of the media, and honestly at this point, apparently even some of the folks over at Fox, are quite liberal. So they have found a strategy that works. They did it in 2000. They did it in 2008. They're about to do it again. They're going to try to force feed us the candidate that they know is going to get destroyed. They did it with McCain. They did it with Romney, and now they're doing it with Trump. But the thing about it is, if you listen to Trump's followers, oh no, he's not the one that the media wants. The media can't stand him, and the media wants to kill him. Well, you're right. They can't stand him, and they do want to knock him out of the race, but they don't want to do that until November. Because they know that Hillary's got a good shot at taking him toe-to-toe. Because when it comes right down to it, there's really no difference between the two of them. The only difference that I can think of off the top of my head is we know that Hillary was partially responsible for the death of 4 people. Trump has never, that I know of, been accused of murder, but I'm sure if we look far enough, we can probably find something. Just my thoughts on that one. All right, so as promised, we were going to run a little bit long tonight, but I don't want to keep you guys up too late because it is a work day for a lot of us, so I'm going to go ahead and stop my little rant for the night. Now, before we get out of here, I do have one little piece of information that I do want to make sure we get to today, and some of you will recognize this sound right here.
You've got mail.
Alright, so you know what that sound means, folks. It's time for a Day in the Life of Hillary Server, brought to you by Eric Williams of barbedwiresatire.com. So without further ado, here we go with a Day in the Life of Hillary Server.
She's a very slinky girl, the kind you don't want for commander. Commander-in-chief. She will never let her guard down. Says it's her turn to be leader. Oh, girl. She likes her emails to be secret. She says it's none of your damn business. When she makes her move to conceal it, Miss Half-Time. She's never done no wrong. Oh, no. That girl is pretty...
Dear Rick, hey, it's me, Server, man. Look, I've got to get these to you really quick. They're starting to monitor what I'm doing. I think they figured out that I let a bunch of stuff go over to WikiLeaks, and I think they figured out I'm slipping stuff to you, too. But here's a few of them. Come on, man. Let the world know what kind of stuff I'm putting up with. Make them understand that I'm not the bad guy here. All right, so to Robbie Mook from subject woman's card, and that is, of course, from hdr@clintonmail.com. Rob, I tried to use my woman's card at Tiffany's in the city yesterday, and they said it had a zero balance, that it had no cash value. That can't be right. They said that the magnetic strip on the back might be worn out from overuse. I do use my woman's card every day. I guess I can temporarily use a different card. I mean, I've got the lesbian card, the victim card, the ageist card, the misspoke card, and the get me out of jail free card. Please make sure each of those cards have some value on them. It was very embarrassing when my woman's card didn't work. Hugs, Hillary. From hdr@clintonmail.com to Cheryl Mills. Subject, off the reservation. Sherry, baby, can you run interference for me with the Indian Nation? The Redskins are mad because I used the term off the reservation when I was talking about Donald's attacks on me. Just let them know I plan on naming Elizabeth Warren as my VP. That should satisfy the American Indian voting bloc. Next time, I guess I'll just use the phrase off the plantation. People are so touchy these days. Thanks a bunch, Hillary. From hdrclintonmail.com to Jennifer Palmieri, Director of Communications. Subject, coal stance. Jen, can you go back through my recorded appearances and check my previous statements on the coal industry? I know I've vowed to run the coal people out of business in the past, but I'll be in West Virginia and Kentucky this week, so I think I'll need to flip-flop and tell them what they want to hear. I just can't keep track of it all. One week I'm against coal, the next week I'm for it, but Grandma's got to get that coal vote, girlfriend. I'm hoping maybe we can use some tricky language to make them think we're on their side, at least until after the first week in November. There's probably hundreds of hours of tape and video to pour through on this, but I'll need this information by 3 p.m. today. Don't screw up, Hillary.
She's a very sleazy girl, the kind you don't want for Commander-in-Chief. She will never let her guard down. Let's get her off the streets. Blow, Billy!
All right, folks, that was A Day in the Life of Hillary Server, brought to you by one Mr. Eric Williams of barbedwiresatire.com. Now, for those of you who've noticed, we've actually jazzed up the intro and the outro for that a little bit. Want to give you a little bit of a background on that. That is actually Super Sneak. It is a parody put on by Mr. Two Cynic Al, who you may know from Twitter, who is also Al from the 5 Minute Patriot, who just advised me we will have a new episode here in the next couple of weeks via email, so I'm looking forward to that so that we can share that with you guys. But that was actually also written by our very own Eric Williams of barbedwiresatire.com. If you're interested in finding that, you can go find it on SoundCloud. It's actually under the title Super Sneak, and it is their parody all about one Miss Hillary Clinton. Because yes, we are anti-Trump around here, but we are also just as much anti-Hillary. Just unfortunately for me, I really don't see any difference between the two of them. All right, so a reminder, as we start to shut things down, I want to give a shout out to a few sponsors because we didn't get a chance to play any commercials tonight because I didn't want to keep you guys up too far past your bedtime because we are the late night show around these parts. So I want to give a shout out to concealandcarry.net. Pretty easy to find. Put the word conceal, the letter A, and the word carry.net in your browser. Click enter. It'll take you to a map of the United States. On that map of the United States, click the state you live in. It will lead you to all kinds of useful information. You can find ammunition, weaponry, and training courses for the ammunition or weaponry of your choice. Make sure you frequent that site often when you are looking for your gun usage needs. We are strongly 2A around here and do encourage you to frequent them as often as you'd like to. Also want to give a quick shout out to politibrick.org. We haven't done that in a while. In this election cycle, if you're anything like me and you spend way too much time watching the news, every so often you have the urge to throw things at your TV. Thanks to these folks, you can do that and have a conversation pieces all at the same time without breaking your television screen. You can actually get all 6 of the bricks they offer for $5. You can find them on YouTube and on their website. A lot of the folks they're still doing the bricks for are not in the running any longer, but again, they are really great conversation pieces, so we do encourage you to pick them up. All right, so that is pretty much going to do it for this particular episode of America Off the Rails, folks. I'm not even going to cue up the outro for the moment because, unfortunately, it's just been one of those days. I had to talk nonstop at the day job, and my throat is about done for the few minutes that I was talking. So on that note, we are out. I will be back with you live tomorrow night with my co-host, now on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Miss Jen Homestead, who is now one half of the Jen and Rick Show that is now a presentation of Aotr Radio, on every Tuesday and Thursday night, so make sure you come hang out with us for that, and I'll be back with you live on Off the Rails on Thursday, and then we'll be live over on on Wednesday. Sorry, actually, I'm sorry, I won't be live Wednesday, but I will be live over on WNJC Thursday, and then we'll be back Thursday night for another episode of Jen and Rick, and then Friday for America Off the Rails. Wednesday is usually one of the nights that we take the night off around here, do any maintenance that we need to do, and a few other things, because Lord knows I'm always doing something. So anyway, I'm done talking for the night, folks. I do hope any of you in Indiana that still are at least on the fence are heavily leaning towards Cruz, because at this point we need you pretty badly, because if we don't at least get Cruz for Indiana, then it's basically a done deal, and we have to deal with Trump-Hillary, and I made a promise. So I'm going to keep that promise, even if it comes down to the general election. I cannot and will not vote for Trump. I will actually just pick somebody from the Libertarian Party and cast my vote and focus on down ballot. So on that note, I'm out of here, folks. You have a great night. This is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
We will keep this promise to the American people.
The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.